Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Real Football Talk. I'm your host Hassan. I have Adil and Steve with me. We'll be discussing England's 2-0 away win against Albania. Steve, what was your take on the performance from England?
Well, I think it's more. I guess it's more about Albania, really. I think always, with a team like England, it's about what the opposition do and how they set the tempo that then drives how England performs. So, Albania, I thought started really well. They came out and pressed quite high, and it looked like they were, they were going to be aggressive, and looked for opportunities to counter on when England made mistakes. There was a couple of times where England made mistakes, either with a misplaced pass or they managed to pick the pocket of a player in possession. And it was those opportunities that Albania probably looked most threatening. So in the 12th minute when they should have scored, really, that was from an England mistake. Mount misplaces a pass, they pick it up, and it was that quick counter turnover of possession and the transition to try and counter-attack that they seemed to be looking like they were going to try and exploit during the game. I just felt that it was more them fading and offering less than England's performance, because England would just perform. They'll just keep doing what they do. That they'll keep passing, moving the ball around, and it's about how disciplined can Albania be, and how, in terms of staying in shape. First, I don't know if Adil will probably pick up on it as well, but in the first sort of 20, 30 minutes, the shape of Albania out of possession, that 5 and 4 in front of in front of the goalkeeper, was really narrow as well. So as well as being compact, the gaps between the units were really small, so there wasn't any space for England to play, but yet still England kept turning back inside, which I think caused them problems. And it's only when they started to realise that actually the space was out wide that they started to get a bit more success.
Do you think, Adil, the reason for England not really creating so many chances is more down to Albania than actually England themselves, or is there something England were missing?
I think it's a bit of both. At the start, it's like they gave Declan Rice a bit more of the road to Rome, a bit more, and it was Calvin Phillips who was staying at the base of the midfield. And what Albania were doing, they were really pressing. Every time the ball got played into Calvin Phillips, they were pressing him. So you could tell that was a tactical ploy. Possibly they saw that as a weakness in Calvin Phillips' game. I mean, he had in the last few years got caught a couple of times in possession like that and giving goals away. So maybe that's what the game plan was. But then what happened was when they switched it around and Rice went to the base, picking it up all the time, and Calvin Phillips was moving up and down the pitch a bit more. It seemed like Steve said, the attack went outside. England realised to go out wide and kind of overlap rather than looking to play to the central zones all the time. So I think that there's little switches like that, but Albania was very good in the first 20 minutes at closing down the space on Calvin Phillips. And once they've done that switch, they weren't doing that same press for Declan Rice or as aggressively, and I think that just allowed a bit more fluidity in the attack, because you got another player pushing slightly further up the pitch in Calvin Phillips. So I thought first half Walker was really good because he's dribbling. He played with a bit more urgency than everyone else straight away, looking to get wide. I think there's one cross where he pulled it back, but probably would have been better to go into the box. But it's a difficult game. I mean, the pitch was a nice pitch to play on. It's very heavy. You can see it's thick, difficult to dribble, difficult to pass. A dry pitch, so it's just thought there's a lot of factors why it was quite a tough game.
What did you make of the first goal and the beautiful cross from Luke Shaw, really, and how it's kind of fitted into this England team again?
Yeah, so I mean, as Adil said, we said earlier that they're getting They got spaced down in the channels, and I felt that came at a point where they started to get numbers in that area. So rather than sort of players going in ones and twos, we had three players in that area. That was probably the first time that Luke Shaw got that far forward alongside like Mason Mount. So you had Mount, Sterling, and Shaw all in that area. And then as the ball is set back to Shaw, I think it was that quick delivery. So that rather than taking a touch, having a deliberation and thinking like, is it the right time to put it in, or maybe setting the ball back and and regrouping and going again, he whipped it in straight away. It's a fantastic cross to the far post. Kane's movement was really good, got across the defender, and his execution of the header I thought was spot on. Obviously, he didn't give the keeper a chance. So great first goal, and it kind of should have been a blueprint for how England needed to play for the rest of the game, because obviously, as I say, the space seemed to be wide. If we could get the ball into those areas quickly and deliver the crosses quickly, then there was more chance of scoring, because obviously, the likes of Kane and Sterling and the other players getting in the box would have been technically better, that you would think, than the Albanian defence. So you just needed to give them a chance to attack the ball. First chance Kane got, he scored. So yeah, that was positive. And I agree with Adil in terms of what he said about Phillips and Declan Rice. I thought Declan Rice actually was a superb all game. I think he's really stepped up this season as a player. I think he's a lot better as a player, and look a lot more accomplished and comfortable on the ball than I've seen him before. And he looked like he could do both roles. So he could either sit deep and help to link the game, or he could play higher up the pitch. Whereas I felt Calvin Phillips, when he was deep, he looked a bit lost, didn't really know how to kind of build play and help the team tick over. So all of his passes seemed to have to go backwards, and he only contributed more as he was allowed further up the pitch.
On that, really, Adil, do you think maybe England kind of missed a trick here? Maybe should have played someone a bit more good on the ball and play kind of Declan Rice a bit deeper, like they changed it at the end. So maybe instead of playing Calvin Phillips, play someone like Mount maybe a bit deeper and play another winger.
They could have done, but I think this is the new way. This is modern football now. This is the way everyone's moved to. I think it's a bit of the Pep effect, where teams are looking to just dominate possession and win the game, and be as professional as they can. And if you look at both goals England scored, it's both one to counter pressing and one to pressing. This is the way football is going now, where it's not really, the onus isn't really on playing football that's going to open up teams. A lot of it is, the focus is on the pressing once you lose possession, and using that as a opportunity to create goals. If you look at the first goal, I thought even against San Marino, England's counter pressing and the eagerness to win the ball back was really impressive. And that's really part of the reason why they got the first goal today, because Mount lost the ball, but his eagerness to win it back, is what caught Albania's defense off guard, because he's won it back at a moment when they're looking to maybe try and push up the pitch, and then he plays Sterling in behind. Sterling plays it Shaw first time. It's the first time, where you've played in behind, and then you've given it back to a player set to cross the ball in first time. It was the first bit of play from England that looked like it could have been a training ground move. It wasn't, but everything was set in with just one touch. So I think that speed of play is what made the goal, really, because everything was one touch. Didn't allow Albania to settle. But on a pitch like that, I think it's really hard. Even if they had a more creative player, Albania would have still been tough to break down because of the way they were set up. So I don't know how much of a difference it would have made, but this is the way football is now. Everyone's obsessed with controlling the game, not taking too many risks, and with the amount of games going on, just do a professional job. And I think it's the right approach. I mean, playing Mount there, if it didn't work, England would have been criticised for playing him out of position, and then you only got Ward-Prowse as the only other real midfielder in the squad. So I think his options were limited, and they made it work. So yeah, I think it's justified.
Edward, do you think then, like, because when the team was announced, and you think, right, well, with all due respect to Albania, you think it's only Albania. Why are they playing two holding midfielders? So do you think it's more a case of us getting a system in place rather than kind of expecting that if we perform well enough, then they should be good enough to beat Albania effectively. So rather than to try and win against Albania, but also set the system up, looking ahead to Poland, to a team that you're definitely probably going to need a double pivot against. So getting those players working alongside each other, and how to maybe just slightly adjust it in already looking ahead to the next game. So right, have that system in place. Hopefully that should be sufficient to beat Albania. Can change it if we need to. You can take off one of the double pivots, but get that system working in the outset, so that then when you come up against Poland in a few days, then you've already had some time working that system within a match scenario to see how effective that is.
I think definitely that's probably what Southgate did, because he's known to do that, where he likes to settle on a system and get players comfortable in their roles within the system. And he doesn't necessarily like to chop and change according to the opposition. He's done this before. So I do think they had Poland in mind. But when I first saw the lineup, I actually also thought, okay, they've got Shaw and they've got Walker, two quite pacey attacking fullbacks. So I actually thought they may also, part of the reason they had two defensive mids was to allow the fullbacks to push on a bit more, which didn't really happen in the first half or second read. So I thought that might have been one of the reasons, where they might give a bit more freedom to the fullbacks. But I think looking at the way they played, it probably was trying to get everyone accustomed to the system and preparing more for Poland.
So do you think this is going forward? This is the formation that England kind of going to use, and not revert back to the three at the back against the big teams, Steve?
No, I don't think so. I think that Southgate is is proving that he's kind of adaptable, certainly in terms of how he sets up. But I think the two holding players that will sit in front of the defence would work, with a two, a four or a three at the back. So it just, as I say, for me, it felt like it was more about setting out that system in the middle, getting that personnel accustomed to playing alongside each other, and working out, as Adil said earlier, which one kind of sits a little bit deeper constantly, and which one's the one that is allowed to go and join on. And that will work if they've got a back, two centre backs, or if they've got three centre backs. So I don't see necessarily that he will just stick with a four. I think it will change, and it probably changed on Wednesday, because if Poland play with three at the back, then he's likely to match them up. So I would see it might probably change on Wednesday.
I think with the three and the four at the back, or five at the back, I think Southgate is quite fluid with that. We've seen against the higher ranked teams, Southgate likes to use the 5-2-3 formation, which is kind of and they kind of play on the counter attack a bit more, using the pace of the wide inside forwards. So I don't think that's off the table, but I just think against the teams where they're expected to dominate, there's more value in having players who can win the ball back and keep that suffocating, and having players in right position to counter press, because against these type of teams where they deflect a different team, as we've seen in the last 2 games, the opportunities come from winning the ball back high up the pitch, not necessarily from having an attacking formation. You know, and I think that's just the way a lot of the bigger teams are set up now against teams that decide to defend deep. There's more value in having players ready for counter pressing and trying to catch the opposition off guard. But against the bigger teams, I'm pretty sure we'll see the wing back system back again.
Let's kind of turn our attention to a bit into Albania, because obviously we didn't cover that. Did Albania kind of do themselves justice, because they played really well in the first 20-25 minutes. They created that chance. Maybe that should have been a kind of template to be a bit more braver and go for it a bit more.
Yeah, as I said, I think that that chance, and there was another chance that they created, I think probably around 30th minute, where they cut out a sloppy pass from Maguire, and they nearly played one of the forwards in, and he was in on goal, and Pope was just sharply off his line. So it felt like actually it was more about that template to try and counter attack, as Adil said about these teams, national teams, playing on the counter attack and trying to exploit that, and that's looked like that was going to be their game plan. Obviously, once England went ahead, that kind of changes things, because it's how long do you try and play that system? Do you just try and hold out and hope for a mistake, or do you change your approach? And I think that potentially England's change of approach at half time, so the second half, had an impact on how Albania played. They didn't seem to press as high, and I think that was the problem from them in the second half, that they couldn't maintain that high press that they had. So as Adil said, they were pressing on Calvin Phillips, but I also felt that they pressed on Maguire and Stones quite a lot as well. So whenever the ball was in in the centre backs or at the deep lying midfielder, that's when they looked at their triggers to press. In the first half. In the second half, either they didn't have the stamina to do that, or England's movement of the ball was a lot quicker and didn't allow them to do it. So they ended up having to hold their shape a lot more and just try and contain, which meant that the plan for kind of hitting on the counter seemed to go out the window somewhat, because they didn't really get those opportunities anymore.
Adi, do you agree with Steve in terms of how Albania kind of didn't really attack?
Albania is set up to counter attack, but I think the counter attack is very difficult if you don't have pace up top. And even though they did okay with the one chance they created, I mean, the finish was terrible. I mean, you have to test the keeper. When you get a chance like that, at least test the keeper. And to hit it first, the shot was straight and then over the bar, and it never looked like it was going to turn. And then kind of tells you where Albania are at. They've got a lot of decent players, especially coming through, but again, they just lack pace and that a real good striker that maybe some teams similar to him. If you look at Serbia and teams like that, I mean, the difference between those countries is they've got goal scorers, but in terms of technical ability across the pitch, it's not too different. I mean, they're aggressive, strong, physical, can do a job on the ball, but the difference is the finishing and the attacking. So, yeah, Albania's. I don't see any other way Albania could have set up either. To be honest, they don't have the players to cut England open, to go toe to toe. So I think it was that one chance was that the chance to change the game and make it interesting and see whether England would panic a bit, but that never happened because they missed the chance.
I mean, Steve, how impressive was Mount and his performance? Because he seems to be coming on really strong and making a claim for a place in the lineup, really potentially for the Euros.
Yeah, You know, I think he looked really good. He's dynamic. He moves the ball really quickly, and he always wants to be on the ball. I think the tenacity. I think the tenacity to win the ball back as well, having lost the ball, is something that kind of, you know, sets him apart from some of the other players that you would look at in that area. So he knows that he's going to maybe turn over possession every so often, but he will always look to win it back. But he joined in the attacks. He was on the front foot. You know, he joined up with Kane and Sterling really well, and he took his goal really well. It was a comfortable finish. He looked really assured in that area, and given the opportunity to take an opportunity, and that's what you really need. You know, you go in these games, you go away, you get your opportunities. What, 2 or 3 clear-cut opportunities in the game, and England have scored 2 of them, and you know that's what you need. And if you look at Ireland's performance, or I didn't look at the performance to be honest, but if you see Ireland's result against Luxembourg, yeah, you know that there's no games are a given, and certainly a team that's not expected to win will have a game plan, and it's about taking those chances, because taking those chances are what's going to make the difference and help to open up the game and put you in control. And that's what England did when they got their chances today. They took those chances and helped them to dominate and control the game. So yeah, Mount for me was integral to that, probably more so than someone like Foden, who is going to be a talent for years to come. But I probably felt that Mount probably contributed more in this game in terms of getting us on the front foot, making sure that we won back possession, and linking play a lot more. And I'm not sure where the direction came from, but I thought it was good that Kane was then at one point pushed further up and probably told not to keep dropping in to try and win the ball or come and link the play, because he didn't really need to be there, and the team needed a focal point. And you had players like Mount that can do that work, and Foden that can do that work of linking play, and it just means that it creates more space for them. So yeah, certainly looks good.
And in terms of Foden, where does it fit into this England system? Because I mean, is he going to be challenging with the wingers, or is he going to play as a number 10?
I think Southgate has been quite consistent in trying to play players in the positions they're playing for their clubs. So that would suggest that, and the 2 games here has shown that Foden is now considered as part of one of the wingers, not necessarily a 10 or a midfielder. So I think the 2 games have shown that he's come on, he's played on the wing. He's played both sides, switched with, because at the beginning of the game, that surprised me, was Sterling side on the right and Foden on the left, and then they quickly switched after about 5-10 minutes. So yeah, so I think Foden is now going to be considered more as a winger, because of where he's playing for Man City. Is more on the wing, but I mean, Mount, I think, has become first choice now. You could tell from the way Southgate praised him highly, and the fact that he's playing and doesn't really like to take him off. I think that's because of the work rate. I mean, his work rate must be the highest in the England team. Just to watch, I haven't got the stats, but just to watch every game, his work rate is just phenomenal. And the thing is, he's not just doing it the last 2 games for England. I mean, it's the same every Chelsea match. His energy levels are just phenomenal, and I wouldn't be surprised it's one of the highest in terms of runs, tackles, the amount of kilometers he's done, the amount of sprints as well. That's the impressive thing as well. A lot of the counter pressing is he wins the ball back because of how rapid and how fast he does it. The sprints, it catches the opposition off guard, and he's got this very good thing of pressing both sides. So he goes one side, as soon as he sees the player turning, his next thing he's on the other side straight away. So his tackling and work rate is just something unbelievable. So I think as a result, Foden's become a winger. I don't think he's got the 10 as his, and I do think Mount has got that shirt now. as the 10. In this formation, he's the 10.
I mean, it seems like a coach's dream, really, Mason Mount is. Steve, you kind of mentioned about Harry Kane and kind of dropping a bit deep. For England, I mean, I know for Spurs, he drops deep because of the way they play to kind of get Human Song in, etc. Do you think he needs to do you think that's kind of killing him in England in terms of not getting into the attacking areas as much because he drops back too much? You're on mute. There you go.
I realised that I'm back. Don't worry, I'm back. Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. In terms of how he can contribute, there's certainly players that can link the play better, not better, but you know, with international football, I think invariably the wingers were kind of not looking to get in behind so much, and I think that was one of the things that was said in commentary, that you know, that the higher players weren't looking to turn Albania's defence in the first half, and therefore if he's coming deep to receive the ball and then turn and take and then play in behind, you need someone to make a run, which is something, as you say, at Tottenham, Heung-min Son does. There was a point where he came, I think, and either got it off of Rice or off Maguire, played it in, and then came really deep and got it off Maguire. He didn't need to be there because, you know, the pass that he played, he's probably playing to himself in terms of the run that you'd want. You know, you'd want him making that run in behind to stretch the defence. And it's only really once he'd got the ball that Foden started to make the run to look to get him behind. But they're not really doing it with the conviction of saying, well, actually, that's where I really want the ball. And a lot of times, obviously, someone like Sterling will want the ball into feet to turn and then go at the opposition defence. So in terms of him coming deep, it kind of negates the way that England, I guess, want to play and takes up some of the spaces that other players would want to be in. And, you know, against that level of opposition, you know, he should be really looking, if he drops it, it's just a set, get it into the players in behind and then join into the middle, hoping for a cross to see and get on the end of.
I think there's two things to that. One was, I don't think he was meant to come so deep because at the beginning of the game he was staying up, but because England was struggling to get him involved, he started to drop deep to get involved in the game. And I think Kane is a player who wants to be involved because he can play multiple roles and he can do that role. He ended up just naturally going towards that. But I think that was partly because of the way Albania set up and the way England weren't taking the ball on the half term. Like you said, you know, Calvin Phillips was going backwards every single time, even when he didn't have anyone pressing him. He wasn't really looking to play a vertical pass. So I think part of the reason was Kane started to drop deep is because he wasn't getting the ball and he wasn't getting involved in the play. So, but the other thing is personnel as well. It works if you have Rashford in the team making that run like Song does. Sterling does do it, but he ain't on the best form. So I only remember him making those runs in behind second half, but in the first half, he didn't really make that run in behind. And I think not having Henderson on the pitch, you not have that player who can play the ball in behind after just one touch. I mean, quite a lot of times when Sterling made the run in the second half, he got frustrated because the ball didn't get sent. And the current England players, especially the defenders, they take 2 touches before they send it. And by then the players become offside or the opportunity is gone. So I think that's something England need to work on, is their ball over the top, because currently there ain't any players from that central midfield and back line that seems comfortable to send it straight away after one touch or on their first touch. They always seem to take 3-4 touches. And it was a shame because there's a couple of good movements that Sterling did in the second half to draw the defender in and then spin in behind. And I could understand his frustration and the ball not being set because there was no one pressing on one time is Maguire, another time is Rice, and is you'd expect an England team that's really fluid to see those opportunities. I think the one time they did send it is too close to the goalkeeper. So it's personnel. I think also not being able to get the ball into Kane just makes him want to get involved a bit more.
Do you think he needs to be a bit more patient? Sorry, Hassan. Do you think he needs to be a bit more patient and either, just hold his position, or the players need to be a little bit more fluid in their movement? So if he does come deep, then there's no issue with him coming deep as long as someone else fills that space. So if he's coming in, that means that there's players in the area that he's in, and someone needs to get out of that area and fill that space, and you'll see a little bit more rotation. And that's obviously where he's more effective at Tottenham, because there's a lot more fluidity of movement of the players, certainly ahead of him, to get out of that space and look, as you say, to get in behind. And that will be any of the forward players will understand that if he comes deep, then they need to go high and get in behind. And that's just not something in terms of the way that England was set up and the way that they play and the way that certainly the personnel that was on the pitch, that just wasn't happening. So I think that's why he needed to be a bit more disciplined and understand the nature of the role on the day.
Well, his goal came from him being a bit more patient. So I think, definitely something. I think the whole England team has to recognize that. They were previously 2 years ago, they were very good at playing the ball over the top as a really good weapon for England. And currently, I don't think they quite got that mastered yet or confident with it. So it's something Kane has to realize as well, that maybe the England team just ain't set up to attack the spaces that he creates when he drops deep. So, and I think England players as well need to do better at getting the ball in the box earlier. There's quite a few opportunities where, they're not getting it in. You create half a yard. Sometimes it's not always about beating your man. It's about, if you've got the space to cross it, the yard, get it in the box, cause trouble and cause an error, because these aren't world-class defenders and a world-class goalkeeper. They're likely to make mistakes. They're not guaranteed to handle those situations perfectly, and you can create something. Not everything needs to be a perfect football where you're creating a chance. Sometimes you can just relax. And the second goal was a bit like that. You win the ball high up the pitch. It wasn't to England's any creative plays, to good pressing off the ball, and Sterling winning the ball back high up the pitch. Sometimes I just think it can be a bit too methodical, especially in that I felt the whole game there was a reluctance to play the killer ball. And I just think maybe that's the modern way. That's the way. I think maybe that's Pep's influence on football. That teams are valuing the ball a lot more and taking less risks unless they have to.
I mean, it's clear from both you guys that we definitely need Harry Kane further up the pitch. Another positive result for England anyway, builds out perfectly for the Poland game. Thank you both for coming on today and sharing the insight of the game. And guys, do keep an eye out. We will have the Poland and England game analysis. So yeah, as always, like, share, subscribe, and thank you for watching.